Call the meeting to order, 4 o'clock. Approval of the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
One second.
All in favor? All opposed? No. Move to a public comment period. Nobody? Nobody. New business?
Sorry, couldn't bring anything. Thought about it.
Old business?
Ah, there you go. Thank you, Commissioner Molina. So, last meeting, and probably the meeting before that, we talked a little bit about the code of conduct for our facility users. I sent out a draft, just a really rough draft of kind of what was communicated at the meeting to me, and then also those things that that I felt were important to include. So I sent that out. I got a couple of comments back from commissioners. Thank you very much for them. Since that time, I kind of was surfing the NRPA internet and found another example of cities really facing this stuff. This either violence or unruly behavior at facilities. And I'll pass this around, but it's Deptford Little League in New Jersey. They posted a sign that says, "Code of Conduct, this organization is protected by township ordinance. Acts of violence or unruly behavior will not be tolerated, and any violation will be punished up to 1 year suspension from all youth sports events." And that's posted at their facility. I'm gonna pass that on if Neville wants to pass it on. Oh, you got copies? Oh, well then never mind. They have copies. You can keep that one, Neville. So, like I said, it seems to be a trend out there. Everybody has a code of conduct in their sports programs. The city has, I just got through with harassment and bullying training from yesterday. I think these guys just got out of the training a minute ago. So the city has a no tolerance policy for bullying in the workplace. And as I mentioned before, some of the bullying is happening to our employees by members of the public, either verbally or via email or via social media. And so the intention of the policy is to create an acknowledgement by whoever's using a city facility, that's the key factor here, that we are somehow or another underwriting their actions. Either they're getting free rent for the use of the facility, or they're getting supplemented by a reduced rent of some sort. Somehow that the city is connected to them. To me, it's our responsibility to make sure that we protect ourselves from any exposure from these groups that are using our facilities. So that's the purpose of the draft. And I'm open for discussion about it, any ideas. Totally, it's a draft. And maybe get some more in-depth thoughts about it.
I don't have anything to add. I thought it was well written, so.
I have to apologize, I have not read it.
So what?
Commissioner Molina, yes, sir?
What are the social media conduct for youth sports? I think me personally involved in adult sports, we see the same thing. And so should we just be saying for youth sports, or should it just be for anybody that youth and adult sports, senior citizen sports? Shouldn't it just go out to everybody, not just targeting the youth organizations? Because then they could say, well, this was for the youth, it wasn't for the adults, and then we get away with this.
Thank you, Commissioner. So here's kind of the thought. and we haven't carried it any further than that. So this particular one was focused on those groups that are using our facilities, like I said, free or at a very reduced rate. Adult programs, typically they are our programs, like adult softball league or adult basketball. So within the structure of those programs, our staff, the recreation staff, can create the necessary rules for conduct within those programs. So they're not necessarily falling into this group, not because they're adult or youth, but because they are paying us to run a program for them. So that's kind of the difference. So I agree that we need to address it in our programs also, but it would be a little bit different than this. That would be more of an administrative function that, excuse me, Dennis and his staff could create the code of conduct, or actually we have a code of conduct, revise the code of conduct to include those kinds of situations that come up in our fee-based programs. If that makes sense.
Yes. I think we should, it's always like, well, the program's all under one, so if the city wants to tell the kids it's one way, it should be everybody, kind of same program, kind of get confusing after a while. If we're under the city's rule of thumb on that,
Yeah.
should be kind of similar.
Okay. We can
I
try.
would think.
No, I think we can clear that up and address it somehow in the verbiage that we use. Yeah, we can make it clear that it's maybe the statement in the beginning is more directed at all our programs, and this particular policy section just deals with, again, those groups that are using our fields for youth sports and are not paying a fee.
And then I also have that, the code of conduct. All programs have a code of conduct, but I know like the little leagues, football or whatever, we have what they call bylaws. And our bylaws is where most of the suspensions are for 1 year or 2 years if you create a problem. And so we have a set of bylaws that if you're in the youth football program that we set to. Also, we have the code of conduct, but the code of conduct is usually in the coach's application, our coach's form. Our bylaws are part of our program where our board runs that. And so what we're doing here is asking the boards to control them, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Before it comes to the city. So they have to go by the bylaws, what their suspensions are. First is a letter, second is suspension, whatever, almost the same thing as this, but they have rules in their bylaws that they set it down to. So it might say code of conduct or bylaws.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee? He read it now.
I've read it. I want to stress once again that regarding the code of conduct, when one is working on site, whether it be a referee or supervisor or lifeguard, we need to give them some type of tool to issue to anyone who is out of line. And at UCSB, we called it a notice to appear. And then that person must, by a certain timeline, make an appointment with the board or whomever that conduct committee is. And it comes down to personal responsibility. No matter how well-written your document is, you need to have a systematic format for making sure that there's some teeth behind it and that your employees have a mechanism to enforce in case someone becomes out of line and that person is called in and reminded of their need to take personal responsibility, to be mature, to abide by the code of conduct, and once again, take personal responsibility for the spirit of competition.
So Commissioner Lee, are you suggesting that, so we have the code of conduct, and I'm going to have to hit Casey for this because he wrote it. the code of conduct has certain expectations for the public. I do not believe, I know we have consequences, Casey. Do you recall what they are?
I'll bring it on screen in just a moment, we can look. But yeah, there's an exclusion portion of that code.
And it's actually an ordinance. So technically, it's an infraction of the municipal code, which is, it's not civil, right? That becomes criminal when it's an infraction. Correct, Mr. Stone?
I believe the way that the code is written is unless it is specifically called out as an infraction, it actually counts as a misdemeanor. We dealt with that recently on the tobacco code with the city attorney's office.
So, Casey, let's say that there's a basketball game and a participant gets out of line, starts screaming profanities at the referee, starts pointing finger at their opponents. What happens?
So I think it's going to be a number of things, and actually let me bring this. So really it's going to come down to which I'm highlighting on the screen right now. So one of the violations would be disorderly conduct, inappropriate behavior, vulgar language and/or gestures, inappropriate displays of affection, abuse of park, plaza, or facility grounds, equipment, or staff, and/or disregard for rules that may result in immediate exclusion from the property. So that could be done immediately. If I can get this mouse to hold still. You've got basically two levels for the exclusion process. You've got the minor violations and then the serious violations. And so really depending on where it fits within that categorization, it would start with a minor violation as it could be a warning notice, which could be verbal or it could be written with a day ejectment, or it could go up to under a serious violation, which could include a violation of local or state law, ejection and exclusion for up to 1 year.
Okay, what I'm getting after is, I believe that we, in sports and recreation, really like to personally affect an individual in a very positive way. And my personal experience is when I face these individuals who have been involved with altercations, by having the follow-up meeting and talking about personal responsibility and asking the question, how do you define success and happiness for yourself, to your friends, to your family? I mean, how do you define yourself as a person to people you care about? And really have a dialogue to talk about personal growth. And if this were to happen again in the future, what would you do differently? Things like that, to help the person understand that, yes, we all have a temper and we lose our tempers, but this is my chance to change my position and learn from this experience rather than continuing down this road. That may lead to more significant consequences. You know, if I had really hit someone, what are the consequences for hitting someone? You know, you can send someone to the hospital, you can end up in jail. At UCSB, it could be expelled from school.
I think one of the challenges that we have in the municipal setting is how do we draw the line between educating someone and trying to gain compliance through that education component, or basically taking disciplinary action, which is what our code is right now. I have sat on and been part of, there's an appeal process to this, right, Casey?
That's correct.
So the individual can appeal any decision that's made and can be brought forward. That's the opportunity that we have to discuss the situation And what we usually will do is have the recreation staff put together the background. Has this individual been involved in other incidents? Because before we get to this point, you know, usually the staff that's on duty, the building attendants, have usually dealt with situations before, you know, either involving that individual or that team. And so we get a little bit of feedback. I mean, we don't go right immediately to this level. And so the supervisors, the rec supervisors who are responsible for the program side, you know, will then put the case together and then bring it forward, and then the decision will be made. Or if it is something, let's say more violent, and it happens at that time, then typically either the rangers or the police are going to get involved, and we'll get that sooner than later. And then we may take action on the code of conduct immediately based on that, whatever the crime report or whatever the police report says. So there's a couple of different avenues that we use. All of those are appealable if we make a decision to discipline an individual or a team. And they can come and they'll present, I believe it's one commissioner and myself or the assistant director will hear the case and then make a decision on a recommendation on how to proceed with that. So there's an opportunity there. What's that say, Casey, please?
With regard to this particular appeal, the decision of the director shall be final and in writing, but it's just going through the process and talks about the decision from that. Of course, there are other developments within the municipal code that may apply too.
So that's kind of where we are today. So there is a mechanism to give the staff the tools that they need when they're out supervising a program. But it is a different environment than educational environment where you're
I
trying
don't
to
see the
teach
difference,
them.
Alex. If you are a supervisor or a referee, what tool do you have to issue to that participant who's out of line?
So typically what will happen is the official, whomever it is, scorekeeper, umpire, referee, they'll make their complaint to the staff that's on duty at that particular event, and then they'll bring it up the chain to, you know, Jimmy Molina was cursing on the field, and so they'll file that complaint, and then the supervisor will need to deal with that, follow up on it. So their chain of reporting is through the department staff that's on site, or they can contact the department directly.
Okay, so once they follow through with that report, there should be certain individuals who are trained to be able to console the participant so that you're really hopefully giving this person an education to becoming a better character, as opposed to very simply, you're out of here, or, you know, some severe consequence.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I got, over 20-some years, Alex and I have been dealing with this, and we've seen a bunch of different things within the boards, and girls softball, years ago, finances, and we reported to the city, and there's nothing really that the city can do about, you know, the candy money being gone, so it just goes unpunished. Board bullying, you get boards that continually just don't have elections or do certain things that keep control of one league, and there's nobody to turn to because the city can't get involved. There's a lot of things that are still, I mean, I love this because it has a no tolerance on this, but there's a lot of things that we're not hitting that the city cannot get involved with because they're youth sports, right? And Alex knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so every group is independent and they run, you know, they have their own board of directors. Typically, they're either a 501c3 nonprofit or they're part of a larger organization like, you know, Little League or Babe Ruth or something like that. They have a national organization that is responsible for them. So our position has been that if there's some kind of misconduct, that it's that board's responsibility to deal with it or take it to the next level, or their parents or whomever could take it to their next level, which is typically a local commissioner or something from that organization that services the area that they're in. That has been the past practice, you're right, and the city's pretty much been hands-off. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be. I think that it's just been where we're not dabbling in somebody else's internal business. But the caveat to that is that we still have a responsibility to the residents that are participating in that program. We still have a responsibility for their use of our facilities for, again, either free or minor charges. And so, I mean, that past practice of ours could change if that's what the commission would like to suggest, to have some involvement, and if the council is willing to go along with that. That's ultimately who's going to make that decision.
My understanding is that over history, these professional organizations, particularly youth sports, have taken on more and more oversight as opposed to having the city actually run the sports. And because of that, I believe we have to come up with more guidelines, and as Mr. Molina suggested, maybe cite examples of unethical decisions that have been used in the past, and give these organizations these examples, that these decisions are unethical and therefore should not be conducted by these organizations. Is that what you're getting to?
Exactly. I mean, this is the beginning of it, but there's so much of it that we can hit out as a city, as commissioners, and
Good point. Good point.
I know it's a tough one, but it's been going on for 30 years,
Yeah.
everywhere, not just Santa Maria.
Commissioner Carey, it looks like you had a comment.
I think our code of conduct, I mean, it's a huge step that we have it, that we're starting with this, but we can't be everything and everybody, and this is like our first step, and as it moves along, probably, if something else is warranted, I mean, we can possibly look at that. But, I mean, we don't have psychiatrists, we don't have, counselors. I mean, and the reality is that what it would take. We'd be kind of tiptoeing into a whole nother realm with that. But anyway, I'm really happy with our code of conduct, and that's, a good start. If we're gonna go further, we'll figure that out later, but for now, I'm really content with this.
Thank you.
Agree.
Yeah, and
Gotta start somewhere.
yes, and that's what I feel we have to start somewhere. And I feel this is the beginning of something that will get the city more involved, where a lot of people have asked for the city to get involved in years prior, and it just hasn't been the policy of the city to do anything about it. And not because their hands were tied, supposedly, so.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is take this draft, take it by the city attorney's office, let them take a look at it. Kind of give him a little bit of a heads up that we were going to be sending something over for him to look at. So we'll send it over, have him review it, give us comments and feedback, and then we'll be back on the agenda for your July meeting. And we'll see if we're able to move at that meeting with a recommendation to council on this particular item. The other thing, if we can put in the minutes that we'll have the recreation staff look at the existing league policies for our sports that we run. And we can work on coming up with some internal policy about bullying within the program. And that can just be built right into our existing codes of conduct.
Thank you. Anybody?
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. We're going to move into the Director of Management Staff Report. Budget and Human.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Presenting the penultimate expenditure status report for the fiscal year. As you can see, we're looking pretty good at 92% of the year. We're at about 83%. And we're expected to end the fiscal year under budget. On the back of that page, you'll see our revenue. It's the same story that I've been showing for the last few months. Revenues are up and projecting almost 120% revenues as compared to what was estimated at the beginning of the fiscal year. Recruitments and hiring, a lot of action going on. An email went out earlier today to announce the new assistant director who will be starting next Monday, the 19th. We are hiring a lot of summer staff for aquatics, whether it's swim instruction or lifeguarding. We're hiring for recreation clerks. There's a lot going on. So if you know of anybody who wants to work in some of our rec programs during the summer, please point them to the city website so that, that they can apply and we can review their applications. City rangers and ongoing recruitment. We have 3 vacancies we're looking to fill. And we're going to soon be opening up some of our part-time positions, laborer, program specialist, recreation activity specialist. We have needs. I also think it's been a theme that I've shared throughout the fiscal year is that we have ongoing needs to fill critical vacancies so that we can continue providing the services that the community expects of us and that City Council wants us to perform. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Any questions? Good.
Neville has single-handedly saved us all kinds of money and made us all kinds of money, so.
Thank you, Mr. Smeta. Moving on to the Director's Report, Mr. Posadas.
So, thank you, Commissioner Malena. So Neville kind of mentioned that we sent out an email. I don't know how many of you checked your email this afternoon, but you heard that we have extended an offer and has been accepted by Angela Oslin to come and work for us starting Monday as the Assistant Recreation and Parks Director. Ms. Oslin comes to us from the city of Santa Barbara, where she is currently the Fleet and Facilities Manager for the Public Works Department. Neville used to work there too, so go figure. So she has an extensive educational background and experience. She's a civil engineer, which is always a good skill set to have, especially as we build projects and work with Public Works engineers to make improvements to the park system, evaluate our annual engineers report. Certain skill sets like that we just don't have. So during the interview process, obviously those skills came out, but I think Ms. Oslin came across as a very good leader, a very organized person, cheerful, a good fit for our department. Her personality, I think, will fit in great with us, and I'm excited and looking forward to her getting here on Monday. Wednesday next week, the 21st at 9 o'clock at Manami Center, we'll be having a little bit of a get-together for those of you that can come by, where some of the key staff can meet Angela and kind of get to know her a little bit. Very informal, just kind of drop in, probably be an hour and a half or 2 hours at Manami Center, Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Other than that, budget, this is we're wrapping up, we have wrapped up and submitted the budget for the mid-year adjustment. City works on a 2-year budget cycle. We are in the middle of that cycle right now. Again, the staff worked very diligently to prepare requests for additional funding and requests for additional program needs. There was two efforts here. One of them was to try to put the need out there to the city budget committee to let them know what issues we're facing in the budget now, and then how we might address them through getting additional funds through the budget process. So there were a few, I don't remember how many we submitted. We submitted a lot, 20, thank you, Neville. We submitted 20. Of the 20, I believe we received 4. 4 projects. Yeah, 4 projects. So, not too bad, 20%, 25%. The crux of the need in presenting the 20 projects was to make sure that the budget committee, which consists of the city manager's office, the finance department, understand that there's needs out there, that we have needs. You may not fund them this time, but you're probably going to see these needs again in the 24-26 budget, which will be prepared next spring. So that was one of the other tools. It's kind of just to give them a heads up that these needs are going to be there again in this next round of the 2-year budget cycle. So council will be considering the budget at the meeting on the 20th, I believe. So we'll see if any of you would like to be there. Certainly council meetings 5:30 here on the 20th. I want to thank Commissioner Carey and Commissioner Lopez for making it to the Maldonado Plaza dedication. Oh, Mashad, what did I say? Oh, geez. Boy, too many M's for me. But I was sad that Teresa wasn't able to make it there to kind of see the dedication, but I guess she wasn't having a good day. If you didn't see the paper, you're all on the front page, so, good. I want to point out to Commissioner Batterson, I did have my pin on in the background in there, so just so you know. I think it was just great to recognize, Teresa's 39 years here. I happened to be looking at the archives of the Santa Maria Times, and I forgot that she used to write a bi-weekly newspaper article for the Times for us that kind of recapped Rec and Parks. And this is back in 94, 95. And so there was a story in there about our park superintendent, Bailey Hudson. And she just wrote, and some of you will know, flowery messages. I mean, it was just a very well-written description of Mr. Hudson and his life with the department. I mean, he retired at his 39th year with the city, so it was good to see her family there, and the community came out to support Teresa in her retirement. So thanks for coming to that. And I believe that's it.
Any questions for?
I have a comment. Dennis sent an email regarding the proclamation for Recs and Parks.
Month, yes.
Or month.
Yes, in July.
He said that that on the June 20th meeting, they'll be
They'll be
we'll
giving us a
receiving the
proclamation.
Okay.
Yes.
And he asked us to discuss something about it.
Yeah, so the discussion is who wants to be there on the 20th. If you're going to come and be on the budget or listen for the budget, then you can be there. I expect that will go fairly quickly. But proclamations will be July's Park and Recreation Month. And so we'll have that for commissioners to accept, basically. So if any of you can make it, that'd be great. Just let us know in advance so we make sure that the council knows who's going to be there. Commissioner Carey, I think you've already RSVP'd for that?
Of course.
Of course, thank you.
But all of it, I mean, the more of us, the better.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah. They need to see us.
Yes?
They saw us.
Okay.
7:10.
Yeah, Commissioner Lopez was a little shy about that. No, come on, you gotta get in the picture, so.
Any more questions for Mr. Posadas? Went on to Mr. Jason Davies here for Mr. Smithers. We're doing a recreation commission report.
Yeah, so Dennis is taking some well-deserved time off. So we have recreation supervisors Jason Davey and Stephanie Salcedo here. If they want to go to that podium or this podium, whichever one's closest. And they're going to kind of give you the report on what their particular program areas are and what they're up to.
Good? Okay. And my mic is hot. Well, before I really get started on my report, I'll be brief, but I want to talk about Teresa also. I moved to Santa Maria, I think in 1982. I was in the 7th grade. Don't date me. And I went to El Camino Junior High, and one day this really pretty young gal, my guess is she was probably like a senior in high school, came to our class and sang to us for some reason. I don't remember why. I never paid attention in school anyway. And it turned out it was Teresa Rayburn. So if you don't know, she was also a singer. She was a beautiful singer. And only just a few years later, when I was a sophomore in high school, I started working for the rec department. Teresa was, well, I don't know what her title was back then, but she was my supervisor. And she was a rock star. And so for those of us that are roughly my age that started working in the rec department, roughly my era, we all knew that Teresa was somebody who you wanted to be if you were going to stay in recreation. She was a rock star. So I'm glad that I got to work with Teresa and learn from Teresa and have Teresa as my mentor for many years. So it's nice to see the park dedicated to her. On to my report. So as Neville said, our staffing levels have gotten a little better. And last time I reported to you all, I think it was back in December, and I had kind of whined to you all that I didn't have any staff. And so now I have almost all of my recreation leader positions filled. With interviews that Stephanie and I did yesterday and more interviews on Friday. So I'm hoping that most of my positions will be filled within a matter of a few weeks, and we'll be up and rolling for summer. So I'm glad to hear about that. We have some new great programs that we've planned for this summer. We have our art studio that's going to be open, and we have a brand new staff person in the art studio. Her name is Deanne Woodward, and she grew up where her family owned a florist shop and a farm. And so that's her specialty, is flower and farm related arts and crafts. And so we have lots of kids that are very interested in the programs that she's planning. So if you'd ever like to come by after 3:30 and check out the arts and crafts programs we're doing out there, you'll get to see that soon. Deanne is also going to be running our Makerspace program that's going to take place at Presker Park in our community building out there. We just got our security door put on, and so now we can finally start getting that program started, buying equipment, and get rolling on programs. So you'll hear more about that soon. Ongoing is our girls' self-defense class that we're doing. That's really taken off. The instructor started off with 2 young ladies in the program, and now he's somewhere around 10 or 12. And then we were approached by a young man, a senior at Rigetti High School. He's a yoga instructor, and he wants to teach yoga. And so we worked out an opportunity for him to do that. And that's going to follow up immediately after our karate class. So the students in our karate class can do karate and then work out their sore muscles immediately following that in a yoga class. We have a program called Living Legends, which is, for lack of, it's fantasy board game, sort of Dungeons and Dragons-ish. And we have tapped into a group of kids that we hadn't tapped into in the past. And that program is getting on the weekend up to 20 kids just in that one little project that we're working on. So we're trying to figure out how to develop that. And make that even bigger. You might have heard of, what was that, last month we did a Dungeons and Dragons tournament at the Menominee Center, and that brought in, I think, well over 300 people. So we're trying to figure out how to develop that a little bit more. We have Teens Love Cooking is coming up. That's going to start June 20th and 21st, and then again June 27th and 28th. That's going to take place at the Manami Center. Kids will get all their food provided to them, and then the instruction comes from our program called CalFresh. And these kids will learn the very basics and intermediate cooking processes. And then, most of you know, David Rodriguez, he's heading up a program called Teen Treks to the Coast, and he's got several trips coming up. He has a kayaking at Avila Beach on Saturday, June 24th. So if you want to come out and watch from land, you can do that. I guess you could go with us, I suppose. And they're going to take a tour around the lighthouse. Transportation is going to be provided. Lunch will be provided to them. We have a Montana de Oro Coastal Bluffs hike on July 8th, and another kayaking trip in Morro Bay on July 22nd, and many other programs in August that I won't get you going with. You'll see all that in the noteworthies. Our Teen CERT, C-E-R-T program is starting soon. That's a what would we call that, a disaster preparedness program. We're working with the fire department on that. Kids will learn how to open mass care facilities and that sort of thing. So that'll be starting, and that is funded by a $25,000 grant from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And then, let's see, I mentioned Makerspace. We'll hopefully have that up and running very soon. It's been a project we've been working on a long time, but we've had some problems with the facility, and now I can't blame the facility anymore. It's time to move in and get a program started. So, any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
No questions for Mr. Thank you, Mr. David. Moving on to Operations
Well,
Division.
I think Stephanie's
Oh,
going.
we got Stephanie coming. I'm
Other
sorry.
side.
No worries, I've only been here 3 months, I'm the rookie. So as far as my programming, I have to start with concerts in the parks. I have to thank Scott and Commissioner Carey to help us weed 36 bands into just 8 bands. So we are kicking it off this Saturday on Father's Day with the Skylights, and they are a 70s, 80s, and 90s band. So from 1 to 3, we really invite people to come out and participate in that at Rotary Park. We just really ask that you just be cognizant of how big your barbecue pit size is, because we do share that space with other patrons. So just sharing is caring. 4th of July is going to be a little bit different this year, but it's still going to be tons of fun. So we are calling it the Spectacular Jamboree, I believe is the name that we came up with. We're going to be at the Abel Maldonado Center with bounce houses and tons of games and a live band that will be playing. That will be the Rock Odysseys. So I really highly encourage everyone to come out on 4th of July from 12 to 4, and we will also have a youth center, what do you want to call it, open house, and the market will be open, so you'll be able to taste some delicious food by some of our teens. The s'more program is always busy, it's always going. This last June 11th, we took 25 adults out to the Channel Islands at Scorpion Bay. So they got up at 5:30 in the morning, or rode a bus for about 2 hours, and then took another 1.5 hour to 2 hour boat ride to the island. They got a tour by a docent. They got to explore on their own, and then they came back and had dinner at the Ventura Mall, where they got to pick wherever they wanted. And they came back, and now they want to do it again. So August 8th is going to be the next trip. So hopefully people will sign up for that. Then we are sending kids to Camp Ocean Pines all summer long, so the goal is 66 kids. We just took 16 this last Sunday, and then we'll be coming back this Friday, so we'll do it again next Sunday. And Camp Ocean Pines is where they get to kayak and fish, and there's a bird out there that lands on your arm. I don't really know falconry, so they'll have lots of fun out there. Rec on the Move really is on the move, so we switched to Grogan Park and Tunnel Park, so we're there from 11 to 3, and we paired that with the Santa Barbara Food Bank that offers free food, so they get to play and have a nice little snack meal, lunch to take home. And then we're still at New Lev because we want to keep our presence there. So we're there from 2 to 5 at New Lev. And speaking of New Lev, we are going to revitalize that program, and we'll be open Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays right after school until about 5 o'clock. And we will have a theme for each day. So Tuesdays is Teams Day. It's just taking the S and putting it at the end in STEAMs to teach kids, to work in groups and work as teams and learn how to work through challenges with STEAM. And then Wednesdays is Wheels Day because we want them to have a safe place to recreate. So we'll close that gate and they'll be able to bring scooters, bikes, skateboards, whatever, and have a safe place to ride around. And Thursdays we're gonna garden. I have a garden. It's a stand-up box. I'm excited about that. And then after that, Rec on Move will be there too to help make the program more robust. And then my goal, my first year, is to highlight the Muscle Center a lot more. So some of the programs that they've been doing is they have an adult nutrition cooking class the second Friday of each month. I think that's super important. We started a new program called Older, Wiser Living, or OWL. And that program meets every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:30 at the Muscle Center. And they are going to have a summer luncheon on July 19th, which is sponsored by the Santa Maria Terrace, and the food is amazing, so, invite people to come. And the other big thing for the Muscle Center is I've been working hard with Wendy with Tivity Health to get us approved for a Silver Sneakers program, and I got the approval yesterday, so the next step is to start training staff to help seniors figure out whether they qualify or not for Silver Sneakers, and then get an instructor certified in Tivity group exercise instruction. So that will be coming down the pike. And that's what I have. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
The concert's in the park, you said Saturday, but it's Sunday?
Oh, sorry,
Is that right?
yes, Sunday.
Okay, Sunday, Father's Day?
Correct.
Okay.
Every Sunday.
Stephanie, and then the cost for programs and
Oh, it is free, and that is thanks to the Rotary Club of Santa Maria, KSBY, Driscoll, the city utilities, and Kiwanis. So because of them, we can have those 8 free concerts.
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, now we're going to move on to Operations Division Report. Casey Stowe.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep this as brief as I can. So a couple things to talk about here. So I don't have the full project updates. Our engineer's on vacation, and so a lot of the updates you guys got last time around are about the same. But I do want to touch on a few that have seen some movement. We're currently working on a sports court resurfacing request for proposal. If it's not already on there, it should be on there soon, but it's going to go on the Planet Bid website where vendors from all over the state can bid on it. The focus of that is going to be primarily the Menominee Court surfacing, but depending on where the bids come in and how much money's left over, we're going to try and get as many other courts done as we can. So we'll hope to have an update on that by the next meeting. The other update I have is the Presker Park Trail is about 95% complete. There's a small area that is near the fire station on the, I guess that would be the southeast corner of the park. We need to do a little trail revision on. We're hoping to have that done the next couple of weeks. So as soon as that gets wrapped up, we'll be complete at that location. The other updates we have are the Pioneer Park Playground. It's about 98% complete. So new playground was installed last week. There were 2 components that were the incorrect pieces sent by the manufacturer. So we're waiting on the new ones to come in a week or so. And once those are on, we'll be ready to reopen that playground facility. Also at Pioneer Park, there's a brand new stage. So the old stage was a bit small and it had a lot of cracks in it, and it was time for replacement. So we're proud to report that that was replaced. It's bigger and better than it was before. Also, Vets Park construction, that's going to be breaking ground in the next, 1 to 2 weeks out, Scott?
I think this
It's
is
the
the
last-
19th it'll start.
Yeah, we're coming right up on that, I guess, next week. As far as park operations go, a few things to point out. First of all, the park shopping cart count, actually citywide, year-to-date, the Rangers have collected 397 cards. And that's significant because last year they collected 555. So at the halfway point, we're at about 400. So that's everything from sidewalks to parks to all over the city that, you know, as they get removed from stores, they're getting picked up so they're not tripping hazards or contributing to blight. A lot more work there to be done, but that's important work. We were, as Alex mentioned before, in the mid-cycle budget approved for the new compost spreading equipment and labor. That's significant because state law is mandating that we start using this compost that's generated locally in a way that's you know, going to help reduce watering and so on and so forth. That creates a big added labor expense. And so that new piece of equipment that we're hoping to get in the next 3 months, we'll see what the wait time is, but that's going to really lessen that burden. So we're very excited to get that approval. Staff recently completed some leadership training. We're going to have another round in July, but that was very positive work that's being done. Recently, the Elks Parade, so parks, special districts assisted with street closures, getting the signs placed, and then picked up and re-inventoried. Rangers worked that parade with PD, so a lot of involvement there, no issues to report. We do have expanded restroom cleaning service coming in July, so you know, one of the big complaints that we get is as people are out using different park restrooms, they may say, hey, it'd be nice if they were cleaner. And that's not that anybody's doing anything wrong, it's just that heavy use and they were only getting cleaned once a day. So we went out for proposal recently, met with the contractor that's going to be getting that this week, and we're hoping early part of July they're going to redo everything that they're doing now. So it'll be 8 hours of cleaning throughout the day, throughout the city, minimum twice per day per facility, but sometimes more. So we should see some improvements in the park restroom cleanliness. A couple of updates for you on things that were mentioned in the noteworthies. In the interest of saving trees, I actually was going to go digital, but the computer's telling me that I don't have the right license to put this on screen, so I'm going to have to pass the one copy that I brought around. But the photos that you're going to see are the park restrooms that are being repainted. So you'll sort of see the before and after. We're going to a new uniform color. The idea is as the graffiti hits, if we're using older paint, recycled paint, we can't get it matched up. So when we've got to cover graffiti, we're seeing those squares and circles. By repainting everything these new uniform colors and using the uniform colors to do the patches, really shouldn't see those as they get fixed. So up front, it's going to be a little added you know, labor and expense, but long term, should be a lot quicker and easier to get that graffiti patched up. So we're excited about that. The other thing I wanted to show you is sort of the progress that our special districts parks team made out at Rodenberger Park. So as you can see, we had those old picnic tables there that were a lot smaller, and they were that corrugated metal material with the rubber on top. The problem is as that rubber comes off and the water sits on it, it starts to rust and really fall apart. And so we had approval to get those new concrete tables, which have the city emblem. You can't see it in that photo, unfortunately. And not only did we get those newer, nicer concrete tables, but we got more of them. So that area's expanded quite a bit. But you can see them, you know, demoing the old stuff and the truck delivering those big, heavy tables and them being placed. So we're going to hope to continue more of those throughout next year because we've got a lot of the metal around the city that just needs to be replaced as we can afford it. So that's really all I have as far as park operations, but Scott wants to give an update on basically all the trees that were planted over the course of the last fiscal year. So Scott.
Commissioners, Scott Christian, talking to you right now as the urban forester. So it's the end of our fiscal cycle, which sort of dictates our tree care. So we've just completed yesterday our pruning for the year. We sent our contractor away for a few weeks to go somewhere else. So we have a budget now of just shy of $600,000 for tree care and tree planting. What's been significant this year is that we serviced, and I'll explain what that means, about 23% of all city-maintained trees. And that's 27,000 trees total that we have. So 23% of them got service this year. What this servicing entails is a tree-by-tree review by an arborist and then a decision of what's needed. So pruning, we're looking for risk factors, so occasionally that turns into a removal. And then something else called root pruning, which is just sort of underground trimming, and that has to do with stopping roots from causing damage to facilities. We serviced 3,420 trees, but in addition to that, we inspected almost 2,900 more trees that we found didn't need service, but then we can record that these trees have been looked at. And that's why we can keep this servicing number up, because we don't have to touch a tree to actually certify that it's in good shape at this point in time. One of the significant things about this is we started, every tree we looked at, we started looking at its root issues, because trip hazards caused by tree roots are a huge liability to the city. So now, rather than being reactive, we are proactively looking at that. So if we find issues like a sidewalk that's starting to raise, or even see a big root that looks like it could cause a problem, we do a little judicious pruning to prevent this rather than reacting afterwards. At this rate, we're hoping in roughly 4 years that we will have looked at all the city trees for this issue. The last thing, which is near and dear, we planted over 525 trees this year, which means we, although we have had to take trees out for risk factors, we are maintaining our 2-to-1 replacement ratio on planting trees. This came both from our various fundings, gas tax that's forwarded to us from Public Works, Special Districts money, and CAL FIRE tree grant. I have big plans for more. We are going to have a lot of trees planted very soon as part of new Special Districts development areas in the Southwest. So several hundred trees, 200 to 400 trees this summer are going to go in. So I was excited about that, and I hope we can maintain that kind of level of planting. So that's it, unless you have any questions.
Any question for Mr. Christian?
Thank you.
It's all good news.
Thank you. Moving on to our commissioners' reports. Commissioner Carey?
Yes, I have a few things. May 16th, we had our Urban Tree Committee meeting, and we're kind of wrapping up the process with DUDEC, our people that are facilitating our grant money. And Scott's got everything basically turned in, and so we're waiting, and we won't be meeting this next month, right?
Are we
And
meeting this month?
or this month, next week. But, yeah, so it's kind of, we'll wait and see what's going to happen with that. I mean, it's going to be fine, and he's worked really hard, diligently and hard on it.
Yeah, they're at about 90% completion,
Yeah.
so they're almost ready to start showing us
It's
a rough
exciting.
final product.
Wait till you guys see it, it's cool. The 24th, I went with Mayor Patino to Santa Maria High Senior Awards Night. Oh my gosh, it was just a beautiful event. It was, all the seniors were there. There's so many of them, I don't remember the number, but that are getting the top of the class. There was, rows and rows of kids that were so, smart and getting awards and getting financial aid. We gave them the Mayor's Youth Task Force certificate for being part of our program. It was just really wonderful. And the principal, just everybody there is just so loves the kids, and the kids are so engaging. And it was a really nice night. June 3rd, there was a Zoom, I had a Zoom for the California Association of Parks and Recreation. And that's who oversees, it's commissioners from the state that are part of it, in case you're not familiar with it. And they're going to soon be part of CPRS. And so that we're working on that, and it's a massive process anyway. But it's going to be better for commissioners because we'll have, there'll be oversight, and they'll teach us what we should learn as commissioners and how we can progress within the CPRS and just with what we do, our duties. Of course, we went to the Teresa Machado Plaza grand opening. That was wonderful. It was almost like a memorial to her, and it was beautiful. Yeah, it was. This is what I want to talk. I've got a couple things, but yesterday, as a county parks commissioner, it's new to me, but I went to the trails meeting. There's a trail group. It's a county trail group, and it's they kept saying it really quickly, but it's CRACTAC or whatever. It's County Riding and Hiking Trails Advisory Committee. And for many years, they haven't had any members from the 5th District. They haven't even had a commissioner from the 5th District. So actually, I thought of someone today, and I think she might be interested. But just to have, if any of you know anyone that's a hiker or interested and that would like to be on a county committee to give input, they give input on the trails, and if there's some development going on, especially out in Orchid, there's so much going on, and the county embraces input from this group. So I just wanted to say, if anyone can think of anyone that might be interested, it's a really interesting group. It was eye-opening for me.
Would that include the river trail?
Yes, that's actually part of a grant that was given many years ago, I believe, but yeah. So if you think of anyone, let me know, or if you want to ask around, it'd be great just to have somebody on our side, on that end of town. Just a couple things. We needed a sign at Jim May Park about feeding the ducks, not to feed them bread. There's people that feed them literally duck food, but there's the Winder bread or the Bimbo bread or whatever that is, and they need to not be feeding them that. It's really unhealthy for them. So if we could have a sign, don't you think? Okay.
Bimbo bread or Weber's?
Neither. Nobody should eat those breads.
Sarah, what about Sarah Lee?
Anyway.
Just out of curiosity, for the website for the department, is there an educational section each time? Maybe we can cover, such as do not feed the duck bread.
Yeah.
No bread. Wolves.
Yeah, we'll make that note for Dennis.
Thank you. I love it. I also have something else. I was trying to figure out how to bring it up, but it's something we need to bring up. Somebody needs to bring it up. The food at Teresa's grand opening was amazing. It was so good. I don't know, those of you that had it, but it was served on these plastic plates. And then mine hasn't been washed. It was a quesadilla, carne asada, amazing. But yeah, but okay. And then they were just thrown away. And can we do something about that? When I was a chair of this committee 4 years ago or whatever, my thing was we wouldn't do water bottles. There's plastic water bottles here, but we didn't do it. No plastic. And this is like a no-brainer. How can we not have people that we hire have these? A little,
I have a question concerning that, because when I went to the Quith-Apache opening, they had bamboo plates. So does the person providing the food provide the plates? Is that what it is?
Yeah, typically it's the
Yeah.
vendor's choice of what they present. But we could certainly put that out there.
And no
say, hey,
styrofoam, no red cups, I mean, just basic stuff, because there's everything, like this, the bamboo. There's so
That was-
many
yeah.
alternate,
We'll give that to Dennis also, since he's not here. He can take care of that when he gets back.
He'll
But
know where
I
it
think that's
came
true.
from.
I think we should be looking at how to be more sustainable, so not a
Perfect.
problem.
I went to a baseball game up in San Luis last week, a Blues game, and what I thought was really neat is you either had to bring your own cups, or they would sell you a stainless steel and it had some sponsorship on it. That way,
Oh,
you keep
cool.
bringing it back
Yeah.
to the museum. It's $10 for the cup, but I thought it was a good idea, and it's a nice cup, so maybe at some point we could look at something like that for the department, because they had sponsorship.
oh, that's very cool. Yeah, okay, that's it, that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Commissioner Batters?
I don't really have anything to add. I was at the the urban forest meeting, et cetera. I missed a few things recently just because I was not feeling well. So I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez?
I just have a question. Can you give us an update on the SEMA's park?
Darn, I thought I was gonna be able to get away without it. So, Little League season is wrapping up right now. So what will happen is, the department actually has an event planned in July. That'll be the last event at the park, and then the fencing will go up. There's already fencing all around the park, there's just one section that is not, and then signage will go up indicating that the park will be closed while we deal with issues there. And that'll take probably August, 1st of August, that'll happen. So that's the plan for now. I've met with the city, the risk manager and the ADA coordinator, and that is their recommendation and direction, so that'll be the first step, and then it'll move on to, okay, so what are alternatives, and we'll work on alternatives.
Has the board of the Southside Little League been informed of this?
Yeah, we had a conversation with the president of the league, that was probably gonna be the option, and we had that several months ago. We let her know that was coming.
Commissioner Lee?
I brought the latest issue of Athletic Business, and I asked Commissioner Lopez to look over it. She will, but I would love for all of you to eventually get a hold of this copy and just look through it. There's quite a few community recreation. This one's particular issue is on the architectural showcase for this year, all the new facilities across the nation. There's quite a few community recreation facilities. So it'd be nice to see what's going on in the rest of the country. Also saw an article that I forwarded to a few of you from the Santa Barbara Independent about the aquatic programs down in Santa Barbara. And I thought, for the size of Santa Maria, I have grandchildren nowadays, and it's so hard to get pool time for our grandkids or the adults. And it sure would be nice to have more pools accessible and swimming programs. So if we can keep that in mind and promote it, advertise it somehow, that would be appreciated. And I want to thank Casey and your staff on Broadway and McCoy. My wife and I drive by there every day, and every day we look at the homeless. There's so many of them, whether it be shopping carts or trash, blankets. They go behind the thrift shops and they just take things and they pile things up all over. The place my daughter-in-law has a jewelry store there, and it's an embarrassment. You know, they're embarrassed to even open the door, and they shouldn't be facing that. You know, I appreciate all of you helping out. We did see the city rangers a few days ago cleaning all that up. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments, and I'll share that with the team. And yes, that area is a real challenge, and the PD is focusing on that. You know, we don't really have any parks in that vicinity. We help out when we can, but that area's been hit especially hard.
Casey, can you do the riverbed next?
As a matter of fact, that came up with the assistant city manager at our meeting on Thursday. And so they did reach out to some officials with the county. And we just heard back today that they spoke to some counterparts in San Luis County. So I'm thinking in the next month, we're going to be getting together with probably everybody, including Caltrans. We do have a few private property owners that have tracks in the riverbed that have been a challenge in the past, but we're going to make another attempt, so stay tuned.
So, I don't know the ordinances, policies, procedures regarding the homeless, but I know the HIPAA laws are really a challenge. As an example, a friend of mine has a brother who's an adult, and they can't even get information to help them with their medication so that they don't go berserk.
Yeah.
I've heard that there are more homeless shelters being proposed and will be built, as an example, by the county government center. There's one projected there.
Yeah.
It's under construction now.
Oh, good. So my personal hope is that we're going to go back to the old days where either if you're homeless and you're out in the street, you get arrested, or you go to the homeless shelter. And then in the homeless shelter, hopefully they'll have assistance in terms of rehabilitation, whatever the person needs. Is that what's going to be proposed?
That's a great question. I know that Governor Newsom recently proposed, I don't know what they call the program. The idea is if we're going to provide resources, you're going to have an obligation to take advantage of those resources. Or if we do catch you breaking the law, you can be held accountable, because that's just not really being done now. I don't know where things stand, but I think you're right. If we don't have something to really incentivize people to take, advantage of those opportunities, a lot of folks that we encounter just don't want the rules that go with the programs. So I think that's been the big challenge, is enticing them to get into those because they don't want the rules.
Well, thank you.
And just, I have to say it just because having family members, but that's part of mental illness, is that they don't admit it, that they need the help. It's and you know that. It's a huge part of it. And it's, there's nothing you can do. I mean, about that. Believe me, we've lived it for years. But there's, especially when they're adults, Anyway.
Commissioner Molina? Is there anything the community can do to save Southside Little League and Seamus Park? Whereas we have a committee that wants to help get it ADA approved and save that whole area, which is not just Seamus Park, it's Elks Field, and that whole area. Preserve historic city of Santa Maria. Is there anything that the community can do to save it?
I don't think we're at that point yet. I think, again, like I said, the city has to decide what it is it wants to do. And that'll be up to the Public Works Department and City Manager's Office and ultimately the council. Right now, the focus will be to close it because it's a liability at this point in time. There's no activity scheduled there right now. So the goal would be to try to figure something out in the next 4 to 5 months and come up with a plan. That plan might include what it would take to make the site handicap accessible. It may come back with, you know, many different recommendations. At that point, when those recommendations come back, then I think that's the place where the community, you know, might be called upon to say, okay, you know, we need a ramp, we need ADA parking spaces, we need, you know, these kinds of things have to happen, restrooms, we need, you know, ADA snack bar. There's a lot of things. I mean, we're potentially, like I said, just for the ramp alone, you're probably talking somewhere upwards of, I don't know, $500,000, you know, and then that's just for the ramp portion of it. The bleachers aren't accessible. You have to create accessible bleachers. It's just going to go on and on and on. So until a plan is developed and a cost is figured out and the city agrees on that cost, we won't know what the plan, you know, where we're going to go. After that, then it's going to be, okay, how do we get this done? That'll be the next step. So definitely, I think at that point in time, you know, we'll get the community involved and say, okay, what is it that you want to do? Elks Field so far hasn't come up, but Elks Field has the same issues. The bleachers aren't accessible. Physically, to be able to get in and out of Elks Field, much easier because it's all level. So that's not a major issue to deal with Elks, but everything else, once you get into the basin side, it's a lot of work, so.
Right, and just for the record, we have already put down companies that are willing to donate concrete, engineers, everything that we need to bring the price down.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, hopefully it's not just a day where we come in and see the forklifts or everything just bulldoze everything down, you know.
Yeah, well, that's like I
that.
say, the plan has to be developed because we need to know what needs to happen to make it accessible. And that might mean bulldozing everything down and starting from scratch, but we won't know that until a plan comes forward. And for that, Public Works will probably hire an engineering firm to come in and work out a design so we can figure out what it would cost. But yeah, it'll be a challenge.
Yeah, because I'm already getting letters and they say when they want community input and before it gets to that point.
Yeah, and what, you know, I envision that's probably going to happen is that the commission will probably have a couple of meetings like we've had on some other projects and invite the public and come in and tell us what it is you want to see there, how we can make it work. We're essentially doing like we did at Oakley, you know, and Buena Vista and Russell, basically scraping the site and coming back with some new uses, new designs. So that's kind of how I think it's going to unveil, and then council's going to have to decide where the money's going to come from. So,
And just, you know, from Santa Maria, just what we have to fix. We don't have much.
yeah. No, I
And
agree.
we have facilities right now that we have to revamp. We have to revamp them.
Yeah.
I do want to add that I think some of the community, at least of the South Side Little League, they are concerned, or there's some fear of change, if you will. A lot of them grew up playing on that field, so the feedback I've received was the involvement of
Yeah.
them. So it's very crucial that we get their input, whether you know, something to consider with this process as we go forward. So we may have some unhappy families.
Yeah, and you know, and to be clear, so what will happen this summer is that the park will be closed for regular public access. It's technically already closed. The Rangers have had it closed in the daytime for a long time. We were allowing field rentals in the evenings for soccer or whatever was going on, baseball, but we won't even be doing that. It'll be secured and then, like I said, you know, identified that it's closed. It'll remain that way until we work our way through the process. So if you talk to people or if you hear from people, the plan is to come up with a plan and then get community input into that plan and see how it's going to develop. And like I said, ultimately, it'll have to go to the council and they'll have to decide its priority in the funding stream of things.
You know, thank you. But like I said, even by closing it, it's going to have impact on soccer,
Yes.
youth football, because those are the only lights we're limited to in Santa Maria where we have like and that's one of the basins that are lit up. We got a new sports complex already, we're saying we're not gonna light up, you know, so that's basically another basin to me.
Yeah, well, we do have, 6 fields that will be lit, that's already in the planning. Adam, Manami, and Crossroads, so they'll be able to move operations for like youth football or anything like that to those fields. It just comes down to, losing a field. That's essentially what's gonna happen without CMUS in the system, so. One step forward, one step back.
Commissioner Lee?
I've raised this before, and I'm going to raise it again. Is there a long-range development plan for our city facilities? And if there is, I would love to see it. If there isn't, we need to work on one to evaluate taking a facility like that and considering the costs of making it ADA accessible versus looking at the whole big picture of what the city needs and coming up with some modern facilities that benefits everyone.
Nope. Yes, and so there is no master plan for park development. There's only the leisure assessment, which tells us what the community wants to see. Parks get developed as residential development occurs. So 19 acres at the Blosser Ranch project, that's happening because of the development. As development happens, then parks get added to the system, which kind of is a good segue into that the city is looking in its general plan right now, and in that general plan, all of you have the ability to go to those meetings. I think Commissioner Carey has been going and talk about the needs that, as you see them, for parks. They're part of the general plan is annexations. Where will the city grow to next? So the planning department's role is to create the general plan, and the planning commission's role is to review it and approve it, and then the council reviews it and approves it. And then that is the long-range development plan for the city. So within the general plan, if they're saying, gee, we're gonna annex, 500 acres, east of town, and it's gonna be 300 acres of residential development, of that 300 acres for residential development, there will be parks included in that. And part of that will be input based from the commission here. You'll have the opportunity to comment and put those comments into the plan. But that's how the city develops and how it kind of rolls out. It's a little bit different than a business that's trying to build new buildings, because we only build as the need is created, and the money comes from development. So, and it usually doesn't come until after development, so we got to go back later on and do that.
With all due respect, I believe that we need to be the experts in the field, and we need to recommend, based on the size of the population, based on a lot of factors, the businesses, hotels, et cetera, where we are located on the central coast of California, where everyone wants to come and visit here, have tournaments here, make some recommendations as to what should exist for this type of city.
And we have those. I mean, there is, 5 acres per 1,000 is the requirement. So for every resident in Santa Maria, there should be, for every 1,000 residents, there should be 5 acres of parkland. So if you look at 100,000 residents or 108,000, whatever the number is now, correspondingly, we should have, 540 acres of parks. We don't. We have about 230, somewhere around there, 240.
So let's show what the percentages we're at now compared to where we should be at. And then maybe we put together a citywide referendum or something.
Working on it. Exactly. That's where we're headed. And those are the things that are important, like what will happen now in the Capital Development Committee. That's really where that's going to fall back on, to kind of bring you up to speed on what's going on with those areas. So I was going to comment that committee needs to meet, as does the Partnerships Committee needs to meet because there's agreements coming up for expiration and new development happening. The annexation plan, like I said, I've received what planning department plans to put out there. Their question to us is, okay, where do you want your parks? What do you want them to look like? So those opportunities are going to present themselves over the next couple of months.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Last thing, just for your personal calendar things, CPRS conference is coming up February 27th through March the 1st. So if you have time and plan, it's February 27th through March 1st. It's in Palm Springs. If you're interested in going, let me know as your schedules allow. There's no rush right now. Registration hasn't even opened yet, but just so you can get it early on your radar. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Brittany, for everything.